Welcome to DECENTRAFIVE. This is the show that we try to take 5 minutes to tackle 10 questions with 0 edits. And you are our special guest today, Steve Brun. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
I love it. I love it. Let's jump right in. Number one, why do entrepreneurs trying to break into the Web3 space need to focus on user experience?
It's a great question. And it's something that I care deeply about because I help to build software, Web 1 software, Web 2, and now Web 3 software. I think the way that I could summarize that the most succinctly is to say this. Customers and users of your product never complain if it's too easy to use, but you always hear from them if they have bugs, problems, or too difficult to use. And the same is going to apply to this new world of Web3, decentralized apps, all this stuff that we're building. There are a whole host of really cool people coming over from the Web 2 world with incredible product management, design, UX, UI, usability skill sets, and of course, engineering. And I'm really hopeful that that's going to help the next generation of products in the next, let's say, 1 to 3 years.
I love it. I love it. Number 2, top 3 favorite street tacos.
Okay, now this is something that is near and dear to my heart because I spent a year of my life riding a bicycle from Santa Monica, California to Santiago, Chile, all through Mexico, wow, Central America, South America, and then our trip ended actually in Tierra del Fuego, although I left in Santiago. So I had quite a few street tacos along the way. I'm a vegetarian now. Back then I was not. So cabeza is a good one, of course, if you like to be a little bit adventurous. If you've ever spent any time in Baja California, of course, fish taco has got to be on the list. And then just to honor myself today, it would have to be something very, very pared back and simple with just beans and rice and a really hot sauce, like a vegetarian.
I love that. So you've designed and strategized for numerous companies. What do you love about creating? Like, what is it about creating that makes you want to do that?
For me, it's very simple. I am a curious person. Because I'm a curious person, I like to learn new things. And so I like to work with companies to learn from them about the things that they're doing. And I work with companies, a lot of software companies, of course, but also agricultural companies, ag tech, and even food companies. I work with a new food company that's building, they're creating a shrimp, a plant-based shrimp product called Shrimpish. You can Google it, Shrimpish.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I'm a curious person. I like to work with really smart people who come up with new ideas and learn from them and hopefully contribute in the ways that I can contribute.
I love it. Favorite frog and toad story?
I love frog and toad. I live in a place that has a cold winter climate, and sometimes you wake up in the morning and you don't want to get out of bed. So there's a little frog and toad back and forth where toad does not want to get out of bed. And so sometimes I can relate to that one in the deep, dark depths of winter.
I dig it. I read that one to my youngest actually a week ago. We were reading through a couple of them. That's awesome. All right. So why should we make data-informed decisions?
Okay. That's kind of a deep question. Let's restrict that question to building software products and the usability, the user experience side of building software products. It's so hard in the product building process to build kind of a data-driven methodology into building products. So much of us, say you and I decide to build something together, you come up with the idea and you say, hey, Steve, let's build this. We start collaborating that together. We have this picture in our mind of what we want to build. And quite often we get so obsessive and we convince ourselves that that thing we want to build is what everybody else wants to interact with or to use or to get value out of, that we sometimes forget to check in with actual customers to find out in a data-driven way whether they would use this or how they would use this, or if it's easy for them to use. So speaking specifically about building products, I think it is fundamental, but it's always a challenge for me to convince my clients that we need to build this into the software building process.
Wow. Wow. That's good. That's good. So do you think Basquiat would have made it in NFTs?
I don't know. I think that Warhol absolutely would have. His buddy, Andy Warhol. Basquiat was a little bit more, while I love his work, but he was a little bit more kind of, I don't know if undisciplined is the right word, but kind of wild. Warhol was a little bit more kind of cold and calculating in his approach to the market. So I would say Warhol, yes. Basquiat, question mark.
Question mark. All right. Origin story for CryptoHeat.io.
Okay. So CryptoHeat is a heat map of the crypto market. And I'll bring that up in a little while. And we'll talk about that, hopefully. Actually, I'll bring it up now. Why don't we take a look at it? All right. So this is CryptoHeat. So CryptoHeat is a heat map that shows you in real time on different time scales the price and volume and activity within the digital asset or crypto markets. You see Bitcoin. Let's take a look at Avalanche. And then let's switch to, let's say, a 1-year time scale. And we can see that certain assets are really strongly up or down, whereas in a 1 day, obviously the movements, or even a 1 hour, are much more soft. So the origin of CryptoHeat goes back to a company that I helped to create called StockTouch back about 9-10 years ago. And it was a heat map of the equities markets categorized across 9 different industry categories. And that was built for the iPad. And that was a successful little company. Apple loved it. And they promoted us, spoke about us in a keynote event, and put us on demo iPads all over the world. So a lot of people got exposed to that. Of course, that was only focused on equities market. It was only on Apple's platform. Years later, I thought to myself, gosh, it'd be really fun to do something similar, but to do it on the open web in a web browser and do it for this new asset class. And that is the origin story. Now, there's a kind of a deeper origin story, and that has to do with human biology and our incredible ability to differentiate when we're looking across a large amount of information, pattern matching, or looking for anomalies. And that goes back to, kind of prehistoric times when we were hunter-gatherers and we're out in the savannah and other places and kind of analyzing, looking for opportunities not to get killed. And what makes our sensory capabilities so astute in that way also gives us the ability to look at, in this case, 130 different digital assets, or in the case of StockTouch, 900 across 9 different industry categories, and see interesting movements. Now, there's not that much information there, right? You need to then start drilling in and to understand why Luna is down 6.98% today, or why Sol is down 5.01%, and what's the news, what's the community sentiment, what else is going on. But that pattern matching and that kind of instinctive visceral way that we use our eyes and how they connect to our brain is part of the ethos behind CryptoHeat.
So how do you wish people would be using it?
Okay, so I hope that people see CryptoHeat as a pulse of the crypto markets. It defaults to a 24-hour view, as you can see down at the bottom here, because that is quite commonly the way people are thinking about digital assets. But of course, that depends on their own perspective. And I think most people aren't buying and selling stuff on a 24-hour basis, but they're curious how much stuff has moved overnight, since they woke up, and take a look at the markets again. So my hope is that it's the first place they go to get a sense of the markets. And then when they want to take that deeper dive, they literally do take that deeper dive by zooming in and understanding more vividly, what's happening with these different coins.
I love it. So is this a myth to be busted? It hurts the environment to mine and stake crypto.
Good question. Obviously, proof of work mining uses a lot of electricity. There's no denying that. And I think that if the miners had no opinion about the electricity they use, and they just buy the cheapest, dirtiest electricity that would be, bad for the world. The truth is, there are a lot of folks who want to do the right thing, and they think that climate change is something that's real and that it's not, kind of a myth or a hysteria, and they want their business activities to support that as well. There are a lot of really interesting thinkers who are putting their brains together, and folks like Nick Carter, Troy Cross, who are saying that Bitcoin is something that could actually accelerate the electrification of humanity, something that can help us with stranded energy accessibility, as well as building out hydro, wind, solar, and even potentially nuclear, and supporting that build out in terms of the CapEx and the initial, kind of OpEx that this is until it's grid connected. So I think that those folks need a bigger platform to explain why they think this is an opportunity. And I think the rest of us owe them a little bit of time to, and there are some companies that are already doing this work. Yeah. So, and there's a difference between going carbon neutral and doing something that encourages, zero carbon technologies. Carbon neutral is cool, like buying carbon credits or whatever, but that's a totally different thing than actually encouraging the build out of this zero carbon electrification infrastructure.
I love that. I love that you differentiated that, because I think people need to hear and see, like you said, they're actively pursuing ways to create new, or to have new creation of energy. Yeah. So who else should we have on Decentrify? Okay,
so I'm going to tie my answer from the last question to this, and that is a guy named Troy Cross. He's a really interesting Bitcoiner. He is a professor at Reed in Portland, Oregon, and he has been kind of reemerged into this world. He's a philosopher. So he comes from first principles philosophical thinking. He's also a person who cares deeply about the world. And he's created a community of really interesting thinkers around him, especially in the Bitcoin space, that are working hard on this concept of Bitcoin, supporting at a massive scale this new energy future. So I will put you in touch with him. I think he'd be a great person to have. He's a very deep thinker, so it would be interesting to see if he can get through this in 5 minutes. But he's a great guy.
I love it. Well, I would love for that. I would really be honored to get to speak with him and take that recommendation very seriously. Well, Steve, it has really genuinely been a huge joy to connect with you today, and just to dialogue even through these things. And it's fun because people have gotten to know more of who you are. And I will say what I'll go ahead and say it now. When I tweet out about this episode, I'm convinced you are probably one of the most valuable people in the designer and the finance and the just how we think about what the current cultural moment is, that's not as known, right? And you may not have all the followers and this check mark and all that, but you bring huge brilliance, energy, and compassion into the space, and it's very clear, and I'm thankful. And thanks for the chance to connect today.
Well, thanks for having me on, and thank you for giving folks like myself and the many other really awesome folks you've had in your show so far and you'll have in the future an opportunity. And thank you for building your platform, because every little bit that we all do to educate each other about this new world, it takes us a step further into this more evenly distributing the future.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Bye.